Hello friends, welcome to Alkem IAS. We are continuing our Indian Express Demystified series. So we will be discussing today's newspaper of 28th May. So before starting, I would like to tell about myself. I am Dr. Rajesh Kumar Mohan. I have done my MBBS from Government Medical College, Chandigarh. I have worked as Assistant Medical Officer in Indian Ordnance Factory Health Services. With regard to civil services, this is my fifth attempt. I have written mains 4 times and have cleared mains 2 times in 2019 and 2020. So let's start with today's newspaper. The first news we are having is that how these vaccine makers, right now, what as we know about after the 50-50 policy of vaccine supply, state governments would have to go for global tenders for vaccine supply. And in fact, cities like Mumbai, like Delhi are going for global tenders. But the problem right now they are encountering is, first of all, these state governments, they do not have the experience in dealing with global tenders. So they are saying that the process of global tender would be costly for them and it would be easier for the central government. Second is that these state governments right now in this process of global tenders floating and companies showing their interest into these tenders, it is generally seen that we have vaccine makers, but there is absence of agents whom can streamline the whole process of vaccine supply to various governments. So this is a issue that is being shown because recently what happened is that Romanian firm, it claimed that it would supply Pfizer vaccine, but after some time, when Pfizer vaccine clarified that they do not have any agreement with any such agent, so this bid was withdrawn by the Romanian firm. So right now, vaccine makers are lacking the agents which can negotiate with the government in order to supply the demand for these global tenders. So next one, let's move on to this news where National Broadcasting Association. So it is has asked the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting in order to exempt the digital arms of news channels from IT rules. So right now we should know what is these IT rules and why the issue is in such a news. So we are having an Information Technology Act. Under this, there were IT rules, which are, in fact, these rules are those documents that are released by the ministry in the name of the president. So these are executive orders and deriving their powers from the act. And the act is Information Technology Act. This process is known as delegated legislation. So recently in 2021, new rules were released, IT rules 2021. So these rules deal with primarily two kind of agents. One is this digital news media and second is social media intermediaries. There are certain regulations that are being made with regard to these kind of entities. So right now, the National Broadcasting Association. So what is National Broadcasting Association? So it is basically industry-led self-governing body of various news broadcasters. So what is it demanding? So it is demanding, and what are its arguments? So they are saying that digital arms of news channels, they should be excluded from the IT rules. What are the arguments given by NBA? First argument that the NBA is giving is that IT Act, when it was made without with no intention to regulating the digital arms of the news broadcasters. Therefore, the rules which are made under delegated legislation should not go beyond the remit given in the IT Act. So it, in a way, is a way through it is a process through which the rules are becoming more extensive than what the legislation is going for. So that's the one argument by NBA with regard to exempting digital arms of the news channels. Second point they are highlighting is that these rules are having terms such as half-truths, good taste, decency. So these terms are very difficult to define, and in fact, they are very arbitrary. So this, in a way, it will result in a reduction in freedom of press, freedom of speech, which is a fundamental right guaranteed in under our constitution, would be diluted because there is so much arbitrariness in the words that are used in IT rules. Because half truths, good taste, and decency, they are open to interpretation, and they would have a chilling effect on the free speech. Third argument, they are saying that so this process of including the digital arms of the news channels into IT rules would result in over-regulation. And this over-regulation would not be a good thing for the growth of the digital news industry. So this is the demand of National Broadcasting Association with regard to Ministry of Information and Technology. Related news we are having is about platform politics. So right now, what we are witnessing is that there is a fight between big tech and the government. The fight is with regard to who will govern these platforms. These big tech platforms like social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So these social media platforms uh, uh, governance is something. The debate is going on. Who should govern this thing? So the debate has now exaggerated on account of some recent things that have happened. For example, under the IT Act, the new IT rules of 2021 have been introduced, and recently the government gave a deadline that by 15 days people should tell that how these social media platforms are being regulated. So the government right now is bringing multiple acts. So IT rules are being made, so where there is a provision of significant social media intermediaries, provision of social media intermediaries and significant social media intermediaries, where it is said that there would be a three-tier structure in order to grievance redressal and regulation of these media. And on the top of this redressal is the government itself. So government, which would be a party with regard to the grievances, is being made an appellate authority in themselves. So the government is trying to restrict the freedom of big tech companies, and now the safe harbor provision has been made conditional. What is this safe harbor provision? The safe harbor provision is that these social media platforms, they are immune from any legal action for anything done on these intermediaries, because it is said that these social media intermediaries are just mechanisms of exchanging the information. So if a person tries to say incite a violence using these social media platforms, then that person who is inciting the violence would be responsible for that act rather than social media intermediaries, and these social media intermediaries would be safe from any legal action that would be raised, that would be started against them with regard to that particular incident. So that safe harbor provision has been made conditional that these social media company intermediaries, when they fulfill certain conditions, then only the safe harbor provision would be applicable. So what are the various conditions that are there? First condition is with regard to that there should be a grievance redressal officer appointed by the social media intermediaries. Second is that there would be an architecture which will ensure that all the grievances are addressed. Third is that uh, they have to ensure traceability. So these generally what happens is that uh, fake news is started by someone and it is spread very fast. So the originator of that fake news, that communally sensitive remark, it's very difficult to identify them due to end-to-end encryption. So on account of that, these rules say that these social media intermediaries should ensure that there should be a traceability with regard to the who is the originator of the information. So these are rules have been brought by the government of India. So, at the same time, recent incidents, if we see, what happened recently is that Twitter flagged certain posts of ruling party ministers as manipulated content. So considering that as wrong, the Delhi police went to Twitter office in Gurgaon and gave them notice that the why action should not be taken against them for violating the rules, existing rules, and what are the provisions which are being used by these social media platforms in order to flag or a tweet as a manipulated tweet. So all these actions have been done from the government side. At the same time, big tech companies. So recent episode is that WhatsApp company, so which is a subsidiary of Facebook, it has gone to the Supreme Court saying that this traceability provision of these new rules, this violates the freedom of the privacy of the individuals, and right to privacy is now a fundamental right as per the Puttaswamy judgment. So because of this violation of the privacy, so these rules should be struck down as per, this is the argument of the WhatsApp. At the same time, we should also remember that the behavior of big tech companies is also not that ethical, because they are using this safe harbor provision in order to avert all kind of responsibility. So what is the source of this safe harbor provision is this section 79 of the Information Technology Act, which provides this safe harbor provisions to the social media intermediaries. So under this provision, taking shelter under this provision, the social media intermediaries are not taking up the responsibilities. How they are not taking up the responsibilities right now, what we are witnessing throughout the globe is that there is widespread misuse of the social media intermediaries, and some false fake news is being spread. And especially during the time of pandemic, the COVID pandemic, the amount of fake news is very high and there are no mechanism to check it. Secondly, these tech companies are interfering in the political process, as we saw in the Cambridge Analytica case, and in case of US, where last in the last elections, previous to the present one, there was misuse of the big tech companies in order to influence the voters in a negative way. So there is also a menace of paid news. So a third issue, that is that the process through which these tech companies are in effect governing the platform are very secretive. So objective criteria of how a Twitter post, a Twitter account would be disabled, how manipulated content would be flagged, it is not open to the public and it is very secretive. So in a democracy, using secretive mechanism where some executive of the companies are deciding how the information will flow in the era of internet, is very problematic. So right now a balance needs to be done, and now it's in the ball is in the court of the Supreme Court, where the case has gone, where WhatsApp has approached the Supreme Court to draw a fine balance where the governance of these platforms is done in a very balanced way, taking in account the democracy, the accountability, freedom of speech, privacy, and all the provisions are taken into account. So this was the article. Now, next opinion page is about efficiency versus dignity. So right now we are having a Supreme Court E committee. So it has come under the leadership, under the chairmanship of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. So this E committee, the mandate of this committee is to ensure that digital technologies are used as an enabler to streamline the judicial process. So recently the draft report was published, and so what is the first of all, this opinion page is dealing with the two aspects. So what are the developments in this regard, and why technology should not be seen as a panacea for everything and can have problems of its own kinds. So what are the developments in this? Right now we are witnessing, so criminal justice system has four pillars. One is police, second is prosecutors, third is courts, and fourth is prisons. So all these, for a very good and well-functioning criminal justice system, all these four pillars should work in coherence and to the best of the level in order to ensure that criminal system behaves in a just way. So right now we are having various digital initiatives which are need-based. For example, right now we are having CCTNS. So what is this? Crime and Criminal Tracking Network and Systems. So it tracks, it has a data with regard to crimes and criminals. Second is we have e-prisons, which is a digital initiative with regard to prisons. We have e-courts, but there is no seamless integration with regard to this. So there has been a launch in this line of ICJS. So interoperable criminal justice system. So where all this data would be integrated under one system, and this project was launched in 2019. So now there are plans that now technology would be seamlessly integrated into it. However, there are concerns raised by the authors how the technology can create the problems. So what are the first thing is with regard to how a centralized database can in fact replicate caste prejudices. So how the caste prejudices that are existing in our system can replicate in case of a centralized system. So one case study is being given. Why so what is the general practice in our police stations is that there is a list that is known as habitual offenders list. So this habitual offenders list is maintained by police stations, where those people who commit crimes regularly, their list is maintained. However, there is a caste prejudice to it. Most of these belong to something called Vimukt Janjatis. So what happened is that during the colonial times, the Britishers had a law which was called Criminal Tribes Act. So what all these criminal tribes? So these Britishers, they designated certain tribes as criminal tribes that they indulge in crime regularly. So that was a profiling that was done by these Britishers. However, after independence, these same tribes were become Vimukt Janjatis, that is liberated tribes. However, these Vimukt Janjatis record is still kept in the register of habitual offenders. So when this kind of data is put into a centralized system, it can create prejudices and all these caste-based issues would be reflected in the data. And the problem would be more graver because generally it is seen that technology is seen as a neutral one. So in that case, uh, and the argument of efficiency is also there. So under the garb of neutrality and efficiency, the social justice element would be neglected. At the same time, the privacy. There are concerns that a centralized system would be prone to leakage of the privacy of those individuals whose data is being collected. So all these, when we are adopting these technologies with regard to our criminal justice system, we should be aware about what are the deficiencies under this. So this is the opinion of authors. So next is making sense of IPO rush. So recently what we are having that multiple companies are issuing IPOs. So what are IPOs? Initial public offers. So it is a mechanism. So what is an equity market? So if a company wants to raise some capital, it can raise through equity market or a bond market, debt market. So the equity market is that the shares of a company are sold to the public. So there are two markets in equity market. One is the primary market, one is secondary market. Primary market is when the company goes for an initial public offer, uh, or say uh, uh, it goes for something called offer for sale, OFS. So these are instruments of primary market where the first time it is done. In the secondary market, these very shares are traded among individuals according to how the company is performing. So right now we are having an IPO rush. What are the reasons for IPO rush? First reason is that what we are having is a good investor sentiment in the market. Why there is a good investor sentiment? Because uh, the cases of coronavirus are declining, the economy is opening up slowly. At the same time, in the future, there are expectations that vaccination drive will pick up, and the future prospects are very good. So because of this, that investors thinking that these companies will perform very good in the future, they are entering the market in order to buy the shares. So because they want to make a profit later on. So generally, a share market is a futuristic one where the future performance is taken into account while taking the decisions by these investors. So because of this good investor sentiment, these companies want to capitalize on it. So if a IPO or OFS is offered when good investment sentiment is there, so the company would have better valuation. And second reason is that recently SEBI has streamlined the process in the primary market. Now it is very easy and fast to go through the official procedures in order to issue an IPO or OFS. So now what are the benefits of IPO and OFS? So first of all, IPO will help raise capital for the company. Second is offer for sale. What is offer for sale? So as a company is started, what happens in that there are certain angel investors, certain initial investors which invest in the company and they get share out of it. So when these shareholders, so they sell their equity in the primary market is called offer for sale. So there is a significant provision of offers for sale. What are advantages of offers for sale? Now these investors will get the return for the risky investment that they did initially in the startup. So it provides an option of exit. Now, considering that they took a risk during the initial stages of the company, that these investors would be able to exit out of it. And it is a good thing only because it shows that our market is maturing. So why it is maturing? Because now these these investors, when they will exit and they will get handsome profits out of their investment there, they will now encourage they will invest in other startups and more companies would be made. So that is the benefit out of to the economy in terms of IPO and OFS. So with this, let's move on to the next article. So it is about Facebook's new tools against the false information. So we knew that Twitter had these provisions of flagging a tweet as manipulated, taking the Twitter account down of those people uh, who are in fact misusing the Twitter platform in spreading false news. Recently, Facebook has also come with various tools where those people who are spreading fake news, which are doing illegal activities, those were be flagged, and there is a mechanism being made in with regard to the news feed of those accounts where fake news is being. So this this news item is regarding the Facebook's new tool where the inappropriate content would be flagged. So with this, we finish our today's newspaper analysis. Thank you for watching our channel. I would like you to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. At the same time, you can also join our Telegram channel. So thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day.